Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Real Conversation about Aging Parents. This is your daughter's host, Athena, and I don't know if you can tell, but I'm kind of sick, but whatever. Yeah. On to the...
Your daughter's host?
Oh, no, this is...
Okay. And remember, it's 100th episode. Let's do it again.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to a really, really special episode. Real Conversation about Aging Parents, and this is your host's daughter, youngest daughter, Athena, and yeah, on to the episode.
Good. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Athena.
Yeah, you have to write it out for me.
That's okay. That's all right. So I'm going to have you and Ari come back at the end and ask me some questions, but I have a special guest here with me, Renee. Hi, Renee. How are you?
Hi, good. Thanks for inviting me.
Long time no see. I think we've done three podcasts together.
I believe we have.
Yeah, we still have a lot to talk about, but today's going to be a little bit different. It is unbelievably the 100th episode of the podcast series, so I am so excited, and I have a lot of questions that I've got asked throughout this time, some emailed, some just in passing, and I thought maybe a good chance for us to sit down and get some of them answered. So thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely, and congratulations.
Awesome.
Well, let's just get into it. So, what is one thing that you've learned about yourself through podcasting?
Oh, these aren't supposed to be difficult questions. So I think, as I've talked about a little bit, I went through a career change about 2 or 3 years ago, and podcasting had been in my head for a while. I really wanted to host a podcast. I had been listening to podcasts for many years. And what I learned is if I think about it long enough, I'll do it. So that's kind of dangerous in some ways, right? Because I'm thinking about getting a new vehicle right now. So I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. And there are some things I just can't tolerate not doing. And so the first time I sat down to actually publish this, it felt congruent. It felt right because it had been just around and in my head, and I had been writing out lists of topics and people I would invite, and I had done that for at least a year and a half before I actually did it. So that's what I learned. So for better or for worse, if it's hanging around long enough, then I'm probably going to do it.
That's consistent with how I know you, that when we have conversations about things that I know you're going to take action fairly shortly after the conversation.
Good. My kids know that too.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I think is helpful because I grew up where there was a lot of talk about things and we didn't actually act on the things that we talked about. And so then you start thinking that conversations are pointless because nobody does anything about them or nobody implements the decision. And I know with you that the decision will translate into action in short order.
So I want to talk about that word because it means a lot to me, just the word conversation, because that's how I feel like I connect with other people. I'm not necessarily like, let's go fishing and not talk. And what I wanted the podcast to be was a very safe and approachable space to have all of the conversations on this topic, because I felt like there wasn't an easy place to bring up a parent that is now needing a wheelchair or a mother-in-law who just, her needs have far exceeded what you can or are willing to support. And so I felt like I just love the word conversation in general. And that's what it is. So that's actually in my podcast title.
So you consider yourself, when we've talked about this, either an ambivert or an introvert. Has that designation changed as you've gone through this process?
I would say it's almost reaffirmed how much I enjoy one-on-one conversations. And I think I excel at those over group conversations. I kind of shut down, especially if it's people that I'm not familiar with. And, I'm married to an extrovert and have at least one child that's an extreme extrovert. And so they get all this energy out of these large groups of people having different directions of conversations. One of the reasons the format is this way in the show is because I just really value deeper conversations, maybe with close friends, but like that deeper conversation to the point where I've had people ask to come on the show with like a partner or somebody else in their, their company or whoever they're coming from. And I actually have never agreed to do that because I just find it's so intimate and personal to be one-on-one. And even when I listen to podcasts, I actually prefer just one guest and one host because it just, to me, it just seems more enriched and almost like higher stakes because it's always clear like who's asking me the question or who I'm asking, It can't be like this awkward, like, or even one-upsmanship or something. So maybe in some rare occasion in the future I'll have more than one, but yeah, I haven't gone through with that.
If you could go back to episode 1, what advice would you give yourself?
So there's some technical advice and maybe some spiritual advice. The technical advice would have been probably to start using video from the very beginning. Just in the time I've been recording the podcast, the landscape of content has really, really heavily shifted towards video, and the audio format has really struggled to keep up. So I don't know if I would have agreed to do that. It's adding video has got its own challenges, but that's something I'm hoping to incorporate in the future episodes, that most of them, if not all of them, will be video. I would say the other thing is it's okay to have a perspective. It's okay. I was very worried to put too much out there and offend people. In fact, I mean, and I'm still, I try to be considerate of that, but it's okay for me to have a perspective and to put it out there, even if that is different or challenging. If I can do it in a respectful way that is true to who I am. But I will tell you that I spent a lot of time worrying about at least the first 10 episodes that I was doing the wrong thing and I was going to offend somebody or put something out there. And I've almost got to the opposite, where now I think the more interesting it is, the bolder the conversation or the bolder the point of view, perhaps that's, the next version.
Is there an episode that has stayed with you the most, and why?
Yes. And luckily I've done enough now where I don't think I would necessarily give away the exact one it was, but I did a recording, and sometimes I can just tell. I don't know if it's the clinical side of me that's done tens of thousands of patient interviews, but I can sometimes tell when someone's holding back. And there's always what I call like the second phase after I stop recording. And the person I interviewed was describing a very challenging aging parent and a lot of challenging interactions with them. And we got through the podcast and I turned it off, and almost immediately they said, when I say challenging, I mean abusive. And when I said this, I actually should have said, they did this to me. And and of course, as I was hearing it, it made more sense to me because you could tell by someone's expression or their tone, like what is actually going on. And when I do these interviews, even though they're audio only on the podcast, I do them on Zoom. So I've never actually done an interview without actually seeing the person I'm talking to. And that's probably a rule. Like I just don't do like phone interviews or something like that. But it stuck with me because I realize there's just a lot of complexity to this topic, and everybody has their own journey and their own way of talking about it. And to the extent to which talking to me or talking to the audience is helpful, then that's what I want to be here for. But yeah. And that was not that was actually the first time it happened, and then it's happened similarly several times after that. That whatever we get through on the podcast is often about 80% of the real story.
So do you have further conversation with that person offline?
It goes like this. I think we're done recording, and the minute I stop, there's an entire other conversation. Isn't that interesting?
I think it's great. It's what needed to happen in the moment.
Right. And so I'm always there for that, right? And I try to schedule the podcasting time so if there is that kind of after talk, I guess. But now I anticipate it more than anything. But yeah, how interesting, right? Like,
yes.
So it's like we open the portal and that person gets out during the podcast the most that they can say that they're comfortable with. And I'm always fine with that. But now that we've connected on it and we go to an even safer space, which is not recorded, then it's like the other 20% comes out, you know? And even people that are relatively positive, they're like, I'm doing the podcast and man, they're really got a great situation. Everything's going great. And I hit stop and now I just kind of hold my breath and it's like, well, so anyway, I think, and I've wondered to myself in a critical way, like, is it just a forum because it's sort of public, or is there a way I could interview differently that they would feel comfortable talking, about everything? And part of me is like, it's just variable, right? I mean, it's just a hard topic. And and I think even if I get 80% of someone's story, it's still going to help, right? It's still going to help put their story out, have them talk through it with me. And then the people listening, the whole purpose of this is that they're picking up something that they can carry forward with them as well.
Do you have a prep process before you record an episode with your guests?
Do you mean, should I have a prep process or do I have a prep process?
Do you?
So I actually have an FAQ that I send out when someone wants to be on the show. And part of the FAQ says that I don't do any prep calls because I'm trying to protect the organic nature of the conversation. And what I found is it's actually harder for me to interview people I know that I know their story.
Oh,
because I already know it. And so me saying, well, what happened next? If I know what happened next,
right.
I can't fake it. I'm not a good actress. So it's like, I actually prefer to interview people that I don't know anything about. And I have to preserve that and not know anything about them up until the moment I hit record, which for a lot of people is weird because they want to, have the conversation. So I have a process. Like I definitely will talk to somebody about like the technology setup, but it's pretty straightforward. Pretty much everything I record is on Zoom, so that's not too technical. And yeah, I almost intentionally go into it blind, except I know who I'm recording with and a little bit about their story, making sure it's relevant to my audience, right? That's just part of screening who comes on the show. That's a whole other conversation, but yeah.
Just segued into my next question, which is how do you decide which topics or guests to bring on?
Well, if I'm having an actual conversation with someone, then that is the easiest place, right? Because I'm actually talking to them. So the two I did, that was with Mike and Doug. It was actually at a volleyball tournament. So it wasn't really planned. It wasn't like we're going to go record a podcast. That was actually the hardest place I've ever recorded a podcast. I was on my iPhone in a back hallway at a gym. And so in that way, those spontaneous conversations are easy. But the ones that I do on my own, I select that partially through like current events. I do a lot of current events podcasts, like new things that are coming out or maybe legislation, things like that. And then I just have a notes in my notes app on my phone. They just appear to me and I'm like, oh, that would be a good podcast. I should do that. And sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. So I had this idea in my head to do a podcast about the Greenland whale. So because I
Really?
read, yes, because I read that there's this whale that's like lives over 400 years. Like there's a whale like swimming around somewhere that was born in the 1600s. Did
I
you know
think
this?
I saw that on Instagram.
Okay, yeah. And I was this many years old when I realized that whales could live that long,
Yes.
and that like adolescent whales are like 150 years old. That's when they stop growing. Okay, and so I love like being delightfully surprised at how little I know about the world. And that was it. I was like, "Oh my God." And they're like, "Oh, this whale, look at all the wars that it's seen and all the change that it's gone through." And so I thought, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do an analogy with aging parents as the Greenland whale. because because they also live so long through like a very sort of quiet life on on the floor of the ocean. And anyway, it's not completely developed, and you could probably tell in some of the podcasts that I had about 20% of the idea ready before I started recording. But yeah. So anyway, so these little things pop up and I'm like, that should be a podcast.
Mhm.
Or people that know I do the podcast are always like, you should do a podcast on that. And then I had this really incredible situation that was not necessarily intentionally meant this way, but I work in a skilled nursing facility,
Yes.
right? And there's a hospice part of it. There's a long-term care, like a residential unit attached to it. And those stories just write themselves, right? I see things happening. Now, I've never intentionally like shared an actual story happening in front of me, but like I see things. I think we really need to talk about this. These are common misconceptions of what happens during this period. And so the universe sort of put me right as I was starting this podcast, and I didn't even in my head didn't even relate these two things. Did that career change and started working in skilled nursing facilities. And I remember standing there probably the second week I was working there and thinking, oh my God, like this is a podcast episode every time I walk in here. There's a daughter negotiating with her mother. You can't come home, Mom. Like I don't have enough, resources to help you. I can't pick you up. I have a bad back. And I just remember standing there like, this is why I'm doing this, because I'm very interested in this topic and I want her story. What I do is I have to restrain myself though, because I see it so much in my professional setting. I wish I could invite all of them, right?
Right.
And the aging parents. And I'm always like, oh, you'd be a great guest. But that's a professional boundary there. But so anyway, so I take a lot of those stories and inspiration, and I'm just lucky and very blessed to have that just in my life, ever present professionally to kind of stimulate the topics.
Could you describe the hardest interview that you've ever done?
The hardest one I've ever done. So I think the hardest interview I've ever done, maybe I'm going to be unfair and talk about different reasons they were hard. When I interviewed Jalen, which is a friend of yours, and you were
Yes.
nice enough to refer me to talk to her, that was episode number 6, although I recorded it pretty much right off the bat. And I don't know how it ended up in the order it was, but I remember thinking to myself, I really hope this goes well. And I hope I'm good at this. And I hope that this is more than a 7-minute conversation. And so it was hard from me thinking how it would go to talk to somebody on this topic. And she was so gracious. And that's actually a beautiful episode and the most downloaded episode to date is that episode. But if you know the backstory, I was very, very nervous. And had actually taken copious notes ahead of time to try to prepare for it. And it turned out well and ended up being a pivotal episode for me because we talked seamlessly. I think that was probably a 45-minute episode. Probably could have been 2 hours. But then it eventually just melted and I just started talking like I would talk to somebody else. And that's when I'm just like in my element, if you will. And that was hard. The other one I found really hard not necessarily to do, but to publish, was an interview I did with Nana. So I interviewed her, and she was like obviously a big part of my story, and I wanted to ask her a lot of questions, and she answered everything as I knew she would, but I felt like very protective of her too, you know? So it was hard for me to talk to her, and I'm not even sure I told her it was for a podcast. I don't even know if she knows what that meant. And so I was trying to not ask her any questions that she might otherwise not want to share with the world. So that was hard. And I know you didn't give me 3 options, but the interview with my dad, I asked him everything I think anybody would want to ask someone else about this topic. And I'll be damned if he didn't actually just answer them.
Wow.
In the exact way that I thought he would. So,
Wow.
and that one I actually have a video recording of, so I'm going to have to figure out what to do with that someday. But it was hard because I would ask my dad, like, what am I supposed to think when you die? How am I supposed to take care of you if you have a stroke? What are we going to do? And I asked him, maybe that was like the whole reason I built the podcast, so I could ask my dad hard questions under the guise of recording a podcast. I wondered that.
Very interesting thought. Yes.
Right? Like, let me build this whole podcast. The truth is, I could have asked my mom or my dad anything. They would have answered me, even by text. So that's how that goes. But yeah, those were hard, but for very different reasons.
Are there any dream guests that you haven't had a chance to interview yet?
Well, I have like a dream guest list I will share with the world because I want these people to come on my podcast. So I really want the stand-up comedian Zarna Garg to come on my podcast. I want Ezra Klein from the New York Times to come on my podcast. What?
What would you say?
These are people I've heard talk about aging parents. The band AJR has some incredible songs about aging parents if you kind of know what to listen for. And they're excruciating and heartbreaking for me to listen to. And I actually reached out to them and asked them if I could use their song like in my podcast or if they would come on the show, and I didn't get a response. So they're on my list. And so they're on my list for all these different reasons. And there's a whole bunch more. But those kind of off the top of my head. I don't mean this to sound like patronizing. I mean, they're all dream guests for me. Like doing the podcast is a dream for me, right? And so, but do I have celebrities? Maybe that's the better word that I want to come on the podcast. Of course I do. Yeah. And so, I always told myself if I did 100 episodes, I'd start hard, like reaching out harder. So maybe we'll see if one of those ends up coming. So if anybody listening has a connection, you now know.
Right.
That, my top 3.
How do they get in touch with you if they want to make a recommendation?
Story@RebeccaTapiaMD.com.
Excellent. How do you see your podcast evolving over the next few years?
I hope I continue to do it. If you're a very like avid listener, you know that there are months where I don't really publish every week. Life kind of gets ahead of me, but I'm trying to organize my life in such a way that it's more consistent, and I would like it to reach more people. It does well, I think, on the podcasting platforms, but I don't do any social media for the most part. So I'd like it to evolve to be in more formats that people access. So like YouTube, maybe some of the short form video. I'm still trying to figure out how to do that. With always the podcast, the long form content on the podcast being the primary thing. But I want it to evolve that way. But I really like the structure right now. I don't think the structure will change. Right now I have just basically 3 types of podcasts. My solo podcast where I talk, and then my guest interviews with experts, and then my guests that share stories. And I just really like that mix. I don't foresee myself getting any fancier than that. I really like those perspectives and the balance that we have right now.
What do you hope episode 200 looks like?
I hope it's a big celebration, and maybe I should actually host something. Like, I hope it is us talking about 100 high quality episodes that helped people that I'll never meet. And that's the coolest thing about podcasting, right? Like, I mean, you can affect people in your own little zone of influence in your own world, but podcasting is a cool opportunity to help and influence people that you'll never meet and never know that you helped or influenced. And that just the option, like even the possibility that could occur is so exciting to me. A giant celebration of another 100 episodes.
If your podcast could create one big change in the world, what would it be?
The big change would be to allow people to have the freedom to think differently about these situations in a way that serves them. If they continue in a difficult situation because it's the right thing for them that they've determined, and they're making these sacrifices and supporting someone else, the biggest change would be that they view it in a healthy way, as free from resentment or guilt as possible. And for the opposite too, if somebody has to limit the support that they're providing to someone else, for whatever reason that they find valid and true to them, that they also feel that they found information here, that they found community, that they found stories, that they found options for thoughts that served them better and made them healthier.
We're almost down to our last question. And this one is about what your kids and family think of the podcast. We could just ask them because they're all here, right?
Yeah. Okay, so yes, I am a little bit sick, but as you can see, I was in the beginning, the intro, because my mom asked me to do the intro. So yeah, here I am. I guess I'm the first contender. I don't really know what to say, but I'll try.
What do you think about the podcast?
Okay, so I'm gonna freehand this. Okay, so basically, I think it's really good. At first, I didn't really know what she was talking about or doing, but now I understand like that she's gotten a really long way because now I understand what she's doing. Anyways, that doesn't have anything to do with it. So I think my mom is doing really good. I am 10, so I don't know if I could say like I like the podcast because I'm 10, and it's about aging parents. But I think it's a really good podcast. I have listened to a quarter of one of the podcasts. I think it's pretty good.
Wait, so you're opining and you've heard 1/4 of one of the 100 podcasts?
Maybe 2 different podcasts.
Oh, okay.
Do you ever think about what it'll be like when your own parents get older?
I have thought about that. Are you asking like what I think I'll do?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I do have 2 other siblings, which you have heard one. Ari so far, my brother's in his room, Justice, and so that'll be kind of a decision for all of us to make whenever we're older. But if I happen to get mom and dad, then of course I would be glad to. But I would I don't think I would have much problems because my mom is very wise. And my dad, I think he can like handle himself, I guess. But honestly, I think it would be nice. 'Cause wait, what was the question?
Your parents.
I'm
What do you
doing
think about
so
your own
bad at
parents?
this.
You're not doing bad.
But where I was kind of going, sorry, I kind of lost track there. I think having my parents would be nice. I would take care of them. I would build like a room for them in my house if we decided that I would have my mom and dad, like how my mom did for her grandma. Yeah. But if they get really old, then yeah. I also think like I would take care of them pretty well. I don't know much stuff that'll be different because I am 10. But yeah,
I think it's hard to think of your parents as getting older,
definitely.
right? And you grew up in a multi-generational household where
Yeah.
you had someone who was quite elderly living here, and
Mhm.
then your parents were pretty young when you were born, and then you also have other grandparents who are older. So I think you're used to interacting with people that are much older than you.
Yeah.
Whereas some people, if they don't live near their grandparents, they don't see them all that often. But
Yeah.
have you noticed things? Like, what have you noticed when you talk to your parents versus when you talk to your grandparents? Is that like a different type of conversation that you have?
I mean, honestly, yeah, because my grandparents are obviously a lot older. So sometimes me and my brother start talking about something, and then my grandparents ask me like what that is, and I tell them, and it's kind of like cool, but at the same time we have conversations about like stuff that happened, like let's say my dad's mom and dad or my grandma and grandpa. Uh like we have conversations about like what our dad did because sometimes it just falls into that. I don't really know how. But yeah, but then if I talk to my mom and dad, since like it's like they understand a little bit more because they're younger, but at the same time,
I think you're just saying we don't know the slang for your age group.
I guess so. I don't really know what to say.
That's okay.
What about Ari? Ari, what do you think about this, about the podcast?
Good job, Athena.
Sorry, guys. I had to kind of like shuffle over here from the other side of the room. What do I think about the podcast?
Yeah.
I think it's
Wait, who are you? What's your age?
It's a good question. Just
She's
kidding.
43. I'm just
No, I'm 14. I just started my freshman year of high school, and my name's Arasana, but I go by Ari. And
What do you think about the podcast?
I think it's kind of ironic hearing you talk to yourself in the other room. I'm like, okay,
That's
mom's
a
kind of
great
doing her
answer.
thing over there. Let mom talk about whatever she wants to talk about. No, but I'm actually much more supportive of your podcast. I mean, I don't listen to it, which would probably be like the best way to support your podcast.
yeah, say.
Yeah, you don't even download it. Like, you're not even a subscriber.
I don't even have my phone.
I mean, I don't
No.
think Gen Z even listens to. Well,
Wow.
sorry, that was kind of blunt. But the truth is that I don't consume my social media anyways. But I think the truth is that you have to be careful about. Like you said, I was eavesdropping on this whole conversation, but you were talking about like, I think that people that are younger respond a lot more to video platforms. But I actually support your podcast a lot more because a lot more than you think. Because like when I hear people talk about some situations, and this is like kind of not very often, but when it does come up, I tell them, I'm like, hey, excuse me, I'm really sorry about what's going on. If you need, my mom has this podcast about aging parents, I think would really help you out. I don't know. I think your podcast really makes me curious because if you look at the human lifespan over like hundreds of years, it's been gradually getting much longer. And I know a lot of people think that humans are only going to be able to live up to 100 years, but that's what they thought when humans only lived up to 40 years. So it makes me wonder, if you're like, if the advice that you're talking about is kind of like timeless, what if in the future humans live to 130, humans live to 140? I mean, some people don't think that's going to happen, but if you look at the scientific trends, I believe it might.
Did you have any questions about the podcast?
I have a lot of questions. I was kind of waiting for my own segment on this, but I was just going to say that I think that your podcast, like you might not realize it now, but I think that in the far future, Oh, well, it's very useful now. But like, what if you have like a great grandparent, a great great grandparent, a grandparent, a parent, and a kid in the same space, especially because we're our real estate situation is not that great. So, wait, yeah, I was just kind of.
Did you have any questions about the podcast?
I do have questions about the podcast. I have them all prepared right here.
Okay.
But I was wondering if like this is like my time to ask.
Yeah.
Okay. So what lessons have you learned about human behavior and psychology from this podcast?
Wow, Ari. Okay. How many in-depth, complicated questions do you have? Oh God.
Your
Okay.
brain has a few trillion neurons, right? I mean, it can come up with a lot.
Stop. What did you say? What was it? What?
What lessons have you learned about human behavior and psychology from this podcast? So, like, have you learned how about people process or respond to grief?
I have learned that it can be helpful to talk things through. And I've learned that the better I get at asking questions, the more I can help people.
Solid answer.
That's what I think. As far as psychology, I think I continue to learn about the complex psychology behind aging parents and all the baggage and all the pressure.
Yeah. All right. With each super deep question, you're gonna have like a light question. Okay, what's your favorite color?
Aqua blue.
Aqua blue. All right. Where do you see this podcast in 5, 10, or 15 years? I mean, will you be doing it when you retire too?
I don't know. Podcasting is a lot of work. I love it, but I don't know. Some of my very favorite podcasters in the world actually quit their podcast in the last 6 months, and it was weird because
Really? Which ones?
they're all different. I don't want to name drop them, but I was like, this person's going to podcast forever. This is my favorite podcast. And then they were like, no, I'm not podcasting anymore. And that's more of a life thing, I think, than anything else. So I don't know.
So they all like stopped their podcast for personal reasons, you think? Or is it just like a podcast burnout?
Yeah, there's this thing called pod fading.
Pod fading.
Where you get kind of burned out and you just stop doing it. And I've been trying to avoid pod fading for a while.
Yeah. Okay. Hot dogs or hamburgers?
Hamburgers. Thanks, Ari.
Well, have you ever considered writing a book, like talking about everything that you've learned from this podcast?
Yes, I actually have. And I'm thinking about it, but the podcast comes first, so I'm going to focus on that and then eventually see if I can combine all the information into a book.
I kind of wanted to ask you this earlier, but have you ever considered, like, if, like, kind of getting a podcast team, like, sort of like a editor? I mean, you talked to us about it.
Are you saying they're poorly edited, which I would agree with you?
No, I just mean you were talking about pod fading. What if, like, a team helps you?
Yeah, that probably gets into the expense side of podcasting. So podcasting is already kind of an expensive hobby, and I do currently the editing myself and the production of it, which has improved over time, but it's not perfect. So yes, I think that'd be great, but no, I don't think I'm budgeted for a full podcast team.
Okay, which Hogwarts house do you see yourself in?
I've never read that book, and I don't even know what that means.
Okay, this is ridiculous. I can't even... Guys...
I am aware that Harry Potter... I'm aware that Harry Potter is a book and a movie. I have not read or seen either.
Mom, we're gonna have a talk after this about Harry Potter.
Let's not.
Anyways, well, do you even remember what you were like during episode 1, or do you remember what episode 1 was about, or like was it a shocking?
I actually probably need to re-record it. I was sitting right over there, in a chair, and I recorded it. It's called Introduction, and I think I've never actually listened to it again, but it's like, hey, here's me. Here's what I want to talk about. And like, here's why we're doing the podcast. And it's the lowest downloaded episode I have. It has not aged well. And so now actually I've been thinking I need to go back and maybe redo it, but keep it as the first episode.
Well, let me see.
Apparently nobody wants the introduction. They want to get straight to the episodes.
Yeah. Well, did you even know you were in for with all this, or did you think it was
No, you don't know. No.
All right, well, which one is your favorite dog? Coco, Abby, Winston, or Chonkers?
Unfair question. Pass.
What? Why?
Okay, it's Abby. Keep going.
How will you know your podcast mission is complete?
When I'm the aging parent, and then I tell you to continue the podcast to complain about me.
That's solid. I didn't
Is that
think about
fair?
that. Yeah. I kind of wanted to ask you another question, but I have to keep up with my own pattern. So, what's your favorite type of taco?
Bacon and egg, breakfast taco, San Antonio is the best.
Sweet. Is there like a specific podcast that just really inspired you to do this?
Oh, like another podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually that's cool because as I mentioned there, the podcast I did with Krista St. Germain on grief, it was me listening to her on a different podcast that made me realize how it may be to have a difficult conversation and have a topic that was hard to talk about. And I actually really enjoyed the podcast. So I was like, I should do that someday.
What fascinates you so much about listening to podcasts? You're a total podcast junkie. I mean, I try to listen to rap music in the car, and all she plays is Ezra Klein.
Well, I that's not all I play. I have a lot of different podcasts I listen to, but I drive a lot because I have 3 kids, and they all have to be picked up and dropped off, and all have extracurriculars, and sometimes I get there early and late. To me, I want to access information that's interesting to me in a way that I can take it, which is by audio.
Yeah.
I've never been a big reader. I do enjoy reading, but I am not
Harry Potter.
I know I'm not, what do you call them? I'm not a bookworm,
Aw.
but I still read voraciously online and listen voraciously to podcasts and audiobooks. And I've always felt like reading is a luxury. And with you guys at your ages, like if I ever had a book in my hand, something was not getting done.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I look forward to when I'm retired is to maybe read more. But I listen to podcasts because I don't read as much as I want to. And I just like the community of listening to somebody that's a good interviewer. I just enjoy listening to good interviews.
Yeah.
I love the tension of a good interview.
Speaking of driving your kids places, BMW or Hyundai?
Stop. So I mentioned that to Renee when she asked me about what were we talking about? When I decide I'm going to do something. when I decide I'm going to do something, I do it. And my beloved BMW has had some mechanical troubles. So now I am preoccupied with the Hyundai Palisade hybrid coming out at the end of this year. So unfair question, Ari.
So I know I already asked you about like what made you kind of want to do this, like what inspired you, but what made you realize you needed to do this? Like if you didn't act now, something was gonna happen. Like, is there like a certain situation that you felt really moved by?
Funny you should ask. I was listening to podcasts about regret proofing your life. And regret proofing is where you take something you always wanted to do
And just do it?
and you do it. And you have to kind of accept that it may be terrible or be a total failure, but you do it anyway. And the podcast was on that list. And so I had to regret proof my life. So that podcast was part of the inspiration for this podcast.
Regret proofing as a concept sounds really powerful. What's your favorite Starbucks order?
Hot chai latte.
Okay. Has anyone cried before or after an episode?
I've cried twice. I don't know if a guest has cried.
You would think that they would.
I have had some guests choke up. Sometimes you can't tell in the audio, but I can tell because I can see them. But I think I'm the only one that's cried.
May I ask why?
I cried in the episode Emotional Billionaire because I was talking about Nana.
Oh.
And going through a lot and processing her moving out. And what's really interesting is, of course, I don't go into it thinking this will be an episode where I cry. And I'm not a crier. Can you attest to that? I am not a.
No. Not even.
I am not.
Not even when you broke your leg.
I know, and so my knee. It's not my leg. You don't have to exaggerate. But yeah, so my kids cry. My kids are very comfortable with crying.
Yeah.
But so I cried in Emotional Billionaire, and then again in the grief episode because I was talking about my friend Jenny that died.
Oh no.
I feel almost cruel for saying this. Speaking of grief, what's your favorite type of donut?
Bro.
Wow,
This is
that was a very bad segue.
Well, I always
like
eat
every-
donuts after
I
feel
like
really
glazed. I think there should not be sprinkles.
Okay, basic.
wow. It's very controversial.
So like, okay, I'm sorry guys. I'm not a heartless person. I just structured this before I even knew I was getting into. What is something that everyone that goes on this podcast, like every guest, has in common? Like, do they have all specific intrusive thoughts, or do they all have specific like, I stayed up really late thinking about this?
Well, they have to agree to be on the show. So just for the record, everybody that comes on the show has agreed to be there. Hopefully
Wait,
that's obvious.
Everybody has
what I-
then
shows he
two-
talked about aging parents.
What I
and
meant
then
was like, is there like
They
a
all
common struggle?
Yes,
even?
they all have a story. They all have a story. But no, that they don't have much more in common beyond that. And that's what I have so much pride in, the diversity of points of views and walks of life and journeys that we have featured here. And it's really the guests that have built that.
So I didn't really write this part down, but now I'm genuinely curious. How do men experience aging parents versus women? I'm sure women have a lot more pressure, but maybe men still go through it, if that makes sense, like culturally.
Yeah. So I've interviewed your dad on the podcast. I've interviewed my
My dad.
brother. I've interviewed several males and always look for that opportunity because I do think that's important to include that perspective. And I will say what I've learned is that their journey is more similar than I thought it would be to what women go through. And I also think at least the men I've interviewed seem more aware that accepting caring for an aging parent, maybe bringing somebody into the home, what that would do to their own marriage or obligate for their own spouse, which I am always like happy to hear that perspective is included.
I was going to ask whether you've interviewed your brothers or not, but you kind of already covered that. And I have a little brother. What do you want to teach him about handling aging parents? Because you're obviously going to talk to me and to them differently.
Is that your last question? Because we should finish shows and I'll move to him.
It's really not my last question at all.
Okay, keep
Like
going.
halfway.
Well, all right, we'll save that one for later. That one's an awesome question. Of course, I came up with it. I'm just kidding. What would you be if you were a fruit?
Ari, what in the world?
I feel like you'd be a strawberry.
Okay, I'll just go with that.
Do you consider your podcast art?
I don't know. I consider it a creative endeavor. I'm not sure that I would call it art.
Why do you think you wouldn't call it an art or art?
Maybe there's the art of podcasting or the art of interviewing, but I guess when I think of if I'm creating art, then it's just me, but like the colors, the vibrations in the podcast are from the guests. So maybe we're creating art together.
Nice. This might seem like a little bit of an irreverent question, but I'm genuinely curious. Why do you tell other people that you're an introvert? Why do you call yourself an introvert? I'm still genuinely curious because it's making me rethink. I mean, is your idea that you don't like small talk and you like really deep talk?
I always prefer deep conversations.
And it gives you energy?
Like I don't avoid crowds, but I don't enjoy. I don't avoid them, but I don't enjoy them. But I'm married to an extrovert, so I tolerate them. And I'm hoping that I come in contact with somebody who we could, go off on a corner and talk about something really interesting and cool.
Yes.
So maybe I'm out there just surveying. And I mean, I have a version of myself that can appear extroverted that I can tap into when needed.
Okay. I think maybe it's more of an issue of emotional depth and extroversion or introversion. I think that people don't talk about it enough. How do you like your marshmallows in the context of a s'more?
Medium.
Medium? So you don't like them like totally?
No.
Oh man,
Golden?
no, just medium.
Yeah.
So what's up with like marshmallows like this?
Wait,
and
how many
glazed
more
donuts?
questions do you have?
I have only a few more.
Okay.
Okay. So you already kind of covered this, but do you realize that you will be an aging parent, the same one that you tend to complain? I mean, sorry, not complain. Talk about. And so, I just feel like, I mean, especially because I'm the oldest. Like, how do you even process that? Because like we're gonna have to take care of you.
Are you?
Well, I mean, maybe a robot will.
No, I'm okay. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, like how do you process that you're gonna be what you tend to talk about?
I think that's why I do it.
Really?
Right. And I'm going to pre-think about all these things and hope that y'all listen to the episodes and then follow none of the advice. You're not listening? Okay. No, that's a good question. And I wondered at what point I become the aging parent, and it's much more not maybe a function of age, like a specific age number, but a function to me of like, when do I start needing assistance? And yeah, that is a good, I probably could, part of me is like, oh, damn it, I'll just keep running the podcast till I die. And then I become the aging parent and becomes even more relevant information. And then I can also go back and re-listen to all of my old ones and criticize them. Wouldn't that be interesting?
That would be interesting. Let's see. Could you prefer salted chocolate or salted caramel?
Salted caramel.
Oh, darn it. Okay, last one. I should think of this on the top of my head. Well, what do you want your kids to know about this? About the art of taking care of an aging parent.
What do I want my kids to know? I want my kids to feel like, I think I don't ever want my kids to feel like I'm a burden, but I want you to have just enough guilt in your life
to take care of you,
to do the right thing for your parents and advocate for us, and then pull the plug at the exact right moment.
Has this? Okay, wait. I'm probably running my limit here, but has this ever has this ever been the source of hard conversations with Dad? Like you and Dad being like, "What are we gonna do when we're super old?" And
your dad and I are very open. So like we are currently doing our estate planning, and part of the estate planning is for you to tell people what happens to your body after you die. And he was like washing dishes, and I was like, "Hey David, if I die, like I want to be cremated and like spread in the ocean." And then he was like, maybe we should think about that. What if we got cremated and then like maybe went into urns like over at the Mission South Cemetery Park where the rest of our family's buried? And I was like, that's fair. And so we can talk like that. And your dad's been very gracious to obviously have my grandmother live here with us. And I think every person hopes that they live long enough to have a high quality of life, but I don't want to outlive my body, and neither does your dad.
Yeah. What is one part of this whole equation that you don't know?
Most of it. That's the whole thing, right? There's so many unknowns with it. You mean for the podcast, or?
What's your most like perplexing unknown? Kind of like one question, that you just can't answer about the whole topic of taking care of aging parents. Like maybe, AI? I don't know.
I think the everlasting perplexing question is how do you maintain connection with the things that matter to you most, and especially if that's an aging parent, in the setting of an ever increasing demand for your time, attention, and money. And I think that's what we're up against, especially with digital demands. I don't know. And I think we're all going to have to figure that out together, because society has changed greatly, even since I was a kid. And the days where women stayed at home and could take care of aging parents are gone. And I'm a career professional, and I don't necessarily want to stay home and take care of aging parents. So I guess we're going to have to figure all that out.
Well, I mean, I have to end on a good note. So, Pepsi or Coca-Cola?
Neither. I'm a root beer person. If I don't drink caffeine really, but if I do, it's Dr. Pepper.
Is there not caffeine in root
She
beer?
loves Sprite too.
What?
Is there not caffeine in root beer?
There's no caffeine in root beer.
Yeah, she loves it.
Kind of dystopian world we live in. Anyways, thank you guys.
All right, Justice, you're the last one.
Wow, it took like 10 years, but like...
I took 10
Okay.
minutes.
So what is your name and your age?
Okay, so I'm Justice. I'm 14. I mean not 10. I'm 10.
What do you think about the podcast?
I think it's very... I'm not gonna say like... I think it's kind of like weird to say, oh, my mom has a podcast, and then they're like, oh, what is it about? It's about aging parents.
Okay.
But I actually really like the podcast, although I maybe only heard like half of one podcast. I still like seeing how you actually film them, and like kind of sometimes whenever you're in your office recording one, I just kind of peek in and I'm like, nice.
Okay. Do you have any questions for me?
Okay, yeah. How do you think you're gonna age with tech? Like, how do you think you're gonna be like one of those grandmas that are be like, hey, why is this random number calling me? I should probably give them my bank account information or something. Do you think you're gonna be like that, or do you think you're gonna actually know? Like, back in my day, I had scam calls, and you had to be careful of that.
Okay. Well, if I have you, my son, then you will protect me, won't you?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think your dad and I are tech savvy enough.
Enough.
It's gonna get
Enough.
like your mom.
But But how do you think technology? Okay, just warning. It's probably going to be a lot about technology. But how do you think technology is going to like help you like live whenever you're old? Like
There's a lot of technology. I need to do a podcast on that. But technology can help a lot with monitoring older people.
yes,
Like for
baby
falls
cameras.
or like heart rhythm problems or blood pressure. Like the technology in the home and relatively affordable these days is great. Like the, voice activated machines where you could tell Alexa or Siri or Google or whatever that you fell and to call someone else. And then I think there's new technology coming out that will detect falls and notify people earlier. So yeah, you're going to get to see a lot in this lifetime, and it's kind of hard to keep up with, but yeah.
How fast do you think technology is going to like aid with it? Because we have Alexas all over the house, and I'm even scared of saying it because it's probably going to be triggering one and be like, oh, hey, what do you need or whatever. But I really, but I still think, you are going to have to like age with someday. Because someday you're going to be like, oh, is the iPhone 17 out yet? And then you're going to be like, and then I'm going to be like, the iPhone 36 went out yesterday or something like that.
Oh.
It's going to be like, it's going to kind of feel weird because already now I have to kind of help you with your battery and stuff like that. She leaves her voice stuff over here, whatever, on, so it ruins the battery. No offense. But it just feels like how do you think, like, what do you think will help the environment, like, of nursing homes and stuff?
just so they don't feel like, because I feel like Nana, whenever she was in the nursing home, she was more like, this is a prison, this is war, this is the worst. Help me.
So there's actually robots that have been developed to provide companionship and support to elderly people, and robots where they could say, hey, call my niece or call my daughter, and they can be pre-programmed. There's a lot of interactive technology where adults could continue to do have some more control over like what they're watching or the games that they're doing. But I don't know of any other, and then we talked about the health technology that helps with monitoring. But the bigger, more exciting part of it would be that there's robots being developed that can lift people off their bed and into the bathroom. And right now you're waiting on, a staff member to come do that. But if we could get to a point where a robot safely, and maybe even safer than a human, can get somebody out of their bed and take them to the bathroom, like that would be a big independence. Like maybe you could even have that in your home, a robot in your home. So, you know more about robots than I do, but my hope is that we have some of those more injury causing activities that are offloaded to robots.
Okay. Do you think I don't think or do you think that they will trust or every old person, like, I'm not gonna say that the 7-year-old grandma that's listening to this is old, but let's say you're in a nursing home. Do you think they would trust the robot? Because usually what they would think is like, oh my gosh, since you're so old, they're like, maybe they're spying on me. Maybe they always, since you get older, your mind gets wiser. Also gets a little bit, also deteriorates a little bit. So yeah.
So do I think they're going to be paranoid or suspicious?
Yeah,
yes. I think.
Yes.
I mean, I think it's going to be hard for anybody to accept robot technology. In fact, I read the other day that one of the first people in the home that's going to be replaced by robots are plumbers. So you would actually have a robot come to your door to do your plumbing. And so I think everybody would have
to do what?
your plumbing. That's going to be the first trade, one of the first trades to be replaced by robots. Yeah.
Oh dang! I remember one of those.
So I don't know. I'm just saying, but like if they can replace, plumbers with robots, then yeah. So you're right. So let me ask you a question. What do you think about your parents? Are you going to take care of me and Dad? Can we move in with you
No pressure.
if we need to? All right. You wrote no on a pad and then showed it to me, but can you talk about that?
Yes, but no. It depends on if I live in a place that I feel comfortable with you going in, because I don't want you to be in a tiny apartment.
So you're going to live in a tiny apartment on purpose so that
no. It depends on if I think it's like safe. Like, let's say Athena has a house that is good, is a good place. It has a dedicated room and stuff.
So you're going to bow out gracefully and let your sisters.
And then, let's say I didn't have an extra room and stuff like that. It would go to her. But I feel like I could have enough, like, I'm not gonna say like room, but I think room, like, let's say the office over there, which you probably can't see because it's not video recorded, but it's right to the right of me and kind of diagonal. It's like 20 feet. I don't know. But what used to be Nana's room, and I feel like that was a perfect room for her because it had a kitchen-ish.
Yeah.
Like a sink and stuff like that. And then she had a bathroom, which is walking distance. Now you don't have to go through the house and wobble and wiggle all over the place and fall potentially, which did happen, but yeah. But also I feel like as you get older, you don't need as big as of a space, because actually you need a smaller space so you don't have to walk as much. and I feel like it's kind of like not good for health.
Hold
That's
on,
what I
wait. So
feel.
are you going to let us move in with you or?
I was kind of like sidetracking off that. I didn't want to talk about that. Maybe like yes, but no.
I mean, like, what if Dad needs help, like, putting his socks and shoes on?
That got to be like sock aid or something. I don't care.
A sock aid? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. You don't have to decide all that right now. You're only 10.
But still, I feel like if you were to like move in, I wouldn't feel that like because like that's how I grew up. I would be like, hey, I had to grow up with grandparents in my house, with a grandparent in my house. Actually, great grandparent, really old, very very. She didn't even go out of her room 90% of the time, except to yell to get attention because her TV, quote unquote, wasn't working. But but
Wow, it all comes out now, doesn't it?
but
You mean you had to live with your great grandmother? Come on now.
but it wasn't bad. It was really fun reading to her and stuff like that.
You never read to her.
You're not in my body. You don't know.
You never read.
I 100% read to her.
Oh,
I 100% read to her.
Okay. What? Any other thoughts on the podcast or any other questions for me?
Okay, questions. Athena, stop messing with my hair. I swear you're never gonna let Mom and Dad move in with you next time. But yeah, stop. But yeah. Another question. How do you think Nana felt like kind of being isolated in her room, just having a TV? All she does was a TV. And
She
maybe,
seemed very content and satisfied with that and did not want to pursue other activities. And we had multiple invitations for other activities.
yes. How do you think Nana like how good do you think her memory is? Because sometimes it's a little like wacky.
That's a whole other podcast. I think it's slipping a bit, but she still seems
Yeah,
with it. So
she's like 92. She's like almost 92, and still remembers my name and remembers my face. Yeah.
I just want to thank all of you guys for being part of the 100th
What about
episode
me?
celebration.
Oh, it's
What?
100th
Yeah.
episode.
Anyway, so
I just don't feel like it at the beginning. Just gonna...
I thought it was great. Okay.
No, bro.
Renee, thank you again for joining me today. And I know we have many more things to talk about in the future, so you will be back.
You're welcome.
It's 100th episode. 100th episode. 100th episode.
Hey everyone, it's Rebecca. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'd like to take just a moment to review the disclaimer. This podcast is for informational and occasional entertainment purposes only. Nothing discussed here is formal medical, legal, or financial advice. By listening to the podcast, we are not creating a patient-doctor relationship between you and myself or any of the guests. Really, it's just me and a possible guest or two, sometimes 3, sitting around talking about difficult topics related to aging parents. If you have or suspect that you might have a medical problem or condition, you should seek advice from a licensed medical professional. If you have any questions or concerns, please read the full disclaimer in the show notes or contact me directly. Thank you again for joining us today. I can't wait to see you next week. Have a good day.